Hi, it's Stu, and we have a lot of books to talk about today. This is a TBR video um, for the amount of time that it takes me to read these books, unless for some reason I decide that one or some of these books I don't want to read. We know how TBRs go, right? I've actually been really precise. Yeah, I think that's the right word. And maybe even dedicated. I create a TBR and I read or attempt to read every book on it, and then I move on to another one, at least before summer reading happened. I am not completely done with books with trees on the cover, but I'm mostly done. And one I think I want to read digitally, and so I'm waiting for it to come off hold. However, because one doesn't exist digitally, the Tex and Meg in the Afterlife, it doesn't have a digital nor an audio version. So I'm waiting. I just read it outside in sunny days, and there are less sunny days. It's taking me longer. Fine. It's really my physical copy, full dedication book. If I'm done with that, and then Homeland Elegy isn't off hold because it's on hold in my Libby shelf for quite a while, I'm on a wait list. Then maybe I'll just get started with it, and it'll be my physical version as well. In the meantime, I might also just start an overlap my next plan. And my next plan has to do with the National Book Award. It is National Book Award season. And so I've found either National Book Award winning authors or authors who are on the National Book Award long list now, who I have another book by them. Not the most contemporary book, because all of my books are thrifted or free. So it's not very often I have a very contemporary book, which is fine. Books need to be read at any time you can read them. And I really stand by my thrifting and free books situation that I'm doing. So let's get started. Trust Exercise by Susan Choi is, it was the winner. It was a National Book Award winner. Yeah, and I know that there's a different cover, and I can't remember if I liked that different cover or not. I got this book from a little free library, and this book is like 6 years old. It's 2019. This book takes place, the setting of this book is of suburban America, and sort of the premise is there's some young actors, performance arts folks, yeah. So the characters are, and they're working on Shakespeare. Yeah. Okay. And of course I'll say more about it and what I liked or didn't like about it, Susan Choi's Trust Exercise, and the review video. The next book is Karen Russell, and Karen Russell has a book on the current National Book Award long list. This is one that I think was on the National Book Award long list before, and according to the front was also a finalist for a Pulitzer in the past. And this is called Swamplandia. Swamplandia takes place in, as one could imagine, Florida, I believe, in like I'm going to call it an amusement or sort of recreation park. And I believe the protagonist is a 13-year-old, so maybe told from the lens of a young person. From what I gather, there might be some magic realism in this book, and this is certainly a family or domestic drama. The next book is also by an author who was a finalist or shortlist for the National Book Award. And I think he also got one of the like laureate awards. That's Dave Eggers. I recently hauled a Dave Eggers book at a little free library, a different one than this, and it reminded me that I had this, What is What? And I've had it for a while. A little less than a year, but it's been hanging around for a minute. So I think it's a good reading. It's a good time to put it on. TBR and get to it. It's dense and it's heavy. I mean, it's, I think, the biographical story of a child soldier in the Sudan. And that's just absolutely a really, really, really heavy topic. So I think this book, which probably will be planned for it next, which is The Friend by Sigrid Nunez. And this is a National Book Award winner, maybe for the book in translation, right? For translated fiction. And it's really great. It has a little note that says, please pass on. That makes me happy because that's absolutely what I'm going to do. I did find it in a little free library right about the time that I was planning to do, books, curate books into a reading TBR that had something to do with the National Book Award. So that worked out. I believe this is a well-known book of the story of some grief and loss, and a woman who loses a very good friend and then adopts the dog. And then the relationship that builds with the dog. So I feel like this is heartwarming, still addressing, real life, a bit heavy themes, but maybe not as really heavy as What is What. Next, and I'm not necessarily reading in that order, but the next book in this pile is by Megha Majumdar, and it's called A Burning. The setting of this is, in quotation, contemporary India. There are people who are the burning, I think, has multiple meanings. I think there are people who are trying to find some upward mobility or to rise. They want to be on their come up, and then their lives kind of meet, I think, on a train that there's a terrorist attack on in India. I have this checked out as an audio version, but I also really like the big font and the way this book, it's a little bit well loved, but as I always say, bunged up books need love too. This book is from 2020. A lot of really contemporary books in this stack, she has another book now. The reason I picked her is she's on the long list now for the National Book Award. Finally, another award-winning author, and I can't recall if she's got a new one out and on the list again, but certainly someone who I have multiple works of theirs and that I would like to get to. This is, I think, the first Jesmyn Ward that I hauled, and it is certainly a well-loved book. It is very annotated. I actually got this at a thrift store, and I paid for it a couple of bucks, and you can see that someone else paid $8.99 at one point. And this book it's got a QR code maybe for somewhere else. This book has been passed around, and I also really like that. And I know that this book also, I believe, has a 13-year-old protagonist, and this is Sing Unburied Sing, by the way, a 13-year-old protagonist. And I thought that would be kind of interesting that both of these books have that in common and also have the crosswalk of National Book Award winning or notable authors. So that's a long stack, but a couple of these, like this one and this one, aren't very big. So I kind of anticipate they'll be one-day reads, especially if that's a weekend day. And also The Friend, right? These are all not very big books. What is What, however, feels heavy and dense, and it's quite a big book, and it could take a while, just even emotionally, to get through. Again, my reading plans are for as long as it takes, and I am about to talk about some other books that came off hold from summer reading that I may or may not integrate in to this basically TBR stack. Judging by these books, I don't anticipate not finishing any one of them, but I also just want to stay really true to myself that if I'm not digging it, I set it back and maybe I pick it back up. There were a couple of cases when I've done that in the last year, and the picking it back up certainly was the right time. It was the right try. And it could even be that I just unhaul it and say, if it's meant to come back into my life, that's fine. I have a big enough library now to have anything that I'm looking for a read if I need a mood read. And then of course I use the public library as well. So on to the 3 books that were kind of off hold from summer reading. And I may or may not get to them while I'm finishing up the books with trees on the cover or integrated through those 6 books that I've just discussed. And that's Saints and Misfits by S.K.L.E. This is a young adult, and I said long ago, and now it has been like 6 months or more, that I needed to read this quickly so that I could get it back into little free libraries, particularly the one by where I live, which is right across from high school. And so I think this is going to get bumped up. Young adult reads are fast, right? They're written for younger audiences, and this is also a finalist for an award. And yeah, so I think, this was put on summer reading list, so long list of things that I then put on hold on my Libby shelf in the library. It has recently come off. The same with Two Nights in Lisbon by Chris Pavone. This one I got at the Friends of the Library. It was one of my 2 free books. And I believe it's political thriller. Like a good thriller, suspense, and or mystery on my shelf from time to time. I like to integrate them in. So it also kind of feels like it could be a decent integration into some more literary fiction type reads. It is quite thick. And if I don't get to it, I'm not going to put it back on hold. I'm just going to go ahead and put it back on my mystery thriller shelf, and that shelf, things on that shelf hit sort of like read or unhaul, or just unhaul for me quite a bit. So we'll see if I get to that. And then finally, Julie Chen is Dead. I have full intentions. This isn't very big, and so I do have full intentions of making it through this book. I don't have super high expectations for this book. I thought when I read this originally, the synopsis, that it was going to be kind of another summer read. It was on summer reading, and so I'm going to try to get to it. I'm also going to say if I don't love it, it's okay. I can let it go. It's a really contemporary book, meaning I feel like if I donate this to the Friends of the Library and or put it in a little free library, it'll get swept up really quickly, being that its publication date is 2025, and it's a little kind of fun for me to have a sort of front list book, maybe one that's, a little bit hyped and talked about, although I don't tend to really love those kinds of books. So we shall see. All right. So that's a huge stack. And I feel invigorated, not intimidated, meaning I have a lot of variety to read from. And I am kind of in a really good reading place. And once I switched off of the summer reading and I got back into like curating a TBR, I felt pretty good about these books. In fact, there was one total miss in books with trees on the front. And then there's been a couple really huge hits, plus I'm just about finished listening to. And it was a long listen, the Ta-Nehisi Coates book, which has been it's sort of, even if I read a book that I didn't like that much, well, I still had that as my listen. So that's going really well. I feel in a great, great reading place. Today was the 2 free books at the Friends of the Library. So I'm going to show you what they are and a couple that I did purchase because their bookshelves are just still overflowing. And I said, I won't commit to much this time, but I'll take a few more if I can find something I really want to read. So The free ones were Colum Tobin, Nora Webster. This is set in Westford, Ireland, and it is his 8th novel. I'm to understand Colleen Tobin is writes queer stories, and I, here we are going to Ireland as a setting. I'm in Ireland as a setting in the current book that I'm in. This will be my second book that I own by this author, and the other one I also sourced from the Friends of the Library. The other free book, just brand new book, and signed. So this is Cult Classic by Sloane Crosley, and this is the same author as the, I think, really popular I Was Told There'd Be Cake. To understand that people really liked, and again, this means not much to me, but since I'm talking about it in a video that's going to be published, people really enjoyed I Was Told There Was Cake, and then maybe not this one as much. There was maybe a little bit less of a reception for this, but it's new, and it's signed, and it's free, and I'm going to give it a chance, and then I'm going to go distribute it maybe in a little free library in another town, and know that most likely a newer free, I mean, like literally nobody's read this book. By that I mean new, not necessarily recently published. 2022 isn't a long time ago, but it's not like a 2025. So yeah, I think, I know I'm going to Oregon somewhat soon, so maybe I'll plan to read it just right before I go and unhaul it. They're the books that I paid for. I see this, I see the chunker, and I say, no, I'm not going to read a chunker. I'm capable of reading chunkers. I like reading chunkers under the right reading sort of circumstances, but it's just, maybe I'm not there right now. However, this was such a find. And this is a Booker winner, and I probably am going to curate a Man Booker Prize winner and or current. I have a Kylie Reed that I think I'll throw in there because she's a judge this year for the Booker. So this is like the exploration of a story about when there was a violent attack on Bob Marley. It takes place in Jamaica. And I'm just here for this book. We'll see if I actually put it on a recent TBR or if it's going to just sit around. Again, I don't think anyone's ever read this book. There isn't even a crease in it. So I purchased it for $3, and let's see if I actually read it. The last one, they had a couple copies. They had several copies of this. And I read a Barbara Kinsliver over the summer. She's still writing. I have another one on my shelf. So I thought, why not? If I'm just going to have something on my shelf, a tried and true author. And this one I think was published in 2020. And the setting is, rural, and the name of this book is Prodigal Summer. I think, 5 or 6 years ago, this was a well-received book. And again, I know this author. I'm happy to have more of her collection on my shelf for when I'm being like less exploratory perhaps, and just wanting, authors that I'm familiar with on the shelf. Finally, little free library near my house. I'm walking a little bit in the neighborhood all the time, maybe even every day. And so sometimes I just peek in, and I unhaul in those little free libraries all the time without taking anything. This time, this is a bit of a bunged up book. This particular little free library, I don't pass that much. And I noticed that there was this book, which was For the Wolf by Hannah Wynne. It's a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. I found this book before in a little free library. And in fact, this is kind of interesting. In a little free library near where I worked. And I chose not to get it. I chose this book instead. And then I thought about it. I thought about it for a couple weeks, and I thought, I'm going to go back to that little free library near my work and see if this book, this For the Wolf, is there. And it wasn't. So I got a Joyce Carol Oates book, which I read, and it was one of those traveling books. And then I unhauled into the little free library at the airport. So I was kind of excited to see this book come across my path again. I felt like that was enough. I'm not sure if this is young adult. I haven't looked it up literally since I originally saw it. So hopefully I'll be unhauling some things off my young adult shelf soon so that I can, so that there's really space for this, because it's a really small shelf. But anyway, I still feel like this is kind of this came into my life twice. I went back for it and it was gone. So I feel like it's a little bit of like, second chance with this book. Hopefully I like it, and hopefully I get to it sometime soon.